My name is Jovi Boparai. I am an eye surgeon by training, and I am the CEO and co-founder of CorneaCare. The company as a whole, so CorneaCare, which is the company Carl and I run, our vision, no pun intended here, but it's to make eye care part of self-care. And if you think about it, it is in many ways building a new category as part of self-care. There's oral care, you brush your teeth, there's skin care, you take care of your skin, and we're really trying to make eye care part of self-care. So the marketing was a challenging initiative to begin with, which was how do we market both towards this building out this category so that the consumer recognizes that eye care should be a part of their daily self-care, but then also how do we do it profitably? Meaning if you're doing just complete top of funnel category awareness or even brand awareness, that doesn't often lead to conversions, right? Because you're so sort of top of funnel. The challenge for the Pilothouse team was, well, how can we do both? Which is still help us build this category so that in the long run, people really start thinking of eye care part of their self-care, but how can we target certain areas within eye care where we can immediately start generating revenue and generating profit as a company? Obviously, for us to realize our long-term vision of making eye care a part of self-care, we want to be profitable and stay around as long as possible to realize that vision. And so we came to Pilothouse really with that challenge in mind, which is, guys, look, like building this generational company, we're defining this category. We need to do it in a stepwise fashion while still generating revenue and profit. And so that's how we came to the Pilothouse team, and they've done a phenomenal job in both of those aspects. In order to foster inter-channel communication, and when we say channel, we're referring to Meta, Google, you have Amazon, and we do some other stuff on other channels like TikTok, but that's kind of on our own as a company. But with you guys, handling Meta, Google, and Amazon, the important thing of having the teams communicate with one another is getting everyone to row in the same direction with a North Star metric that we use on an ecosystem-wide sort of approach, which is, look, like we want to be, the target that we use is a profit margin. We have a number that we basically look at and we try to assess that on a monthly basis. And I think what's really helped foster inter-channel communication is having an ecosystem target. Like, guys, as an ecosystem, this is the profit margin we want to be at for this month, for this quarter. And you all need to sort of figure out what your spends will look like, what kind of revenue you're generating per channel for us to obtain this profit margin target. So I think the communication, when we initially started, we were very much working with silos. I think we came on working with just one channel, and I believe we initially started with Google and Meta and then added Amazon on shortly thereafter. But when we first came on, I think the communication was a bit more siloed. And then over our time period of working together with the team, in many ways, almost sort of demanded that we all be on the same calls on a weekly basis so that Amazon figures out and learns about what Google and Meta are doing and vice versa. I think we instituted this early in 2024, but even after doing so, I think we struggled with how do we get all the teams rowing in the same direction? And probably end of Q1, early Q2 of this year, after still having issues of the entire ecosystem working together, we figured why not we just have a given ecosystem North Star metric that everybody has to focus on. And as Carl and I were growing the company, it's easier for us to judge the entire ecosystem and see how it's doing versus each individual channel. So we basically say, look, like we want the ecosystem profit margin to be this, and you guys work together to sort of figure out what your spend, what your revenue is going to look like for a given month so that we can hit this target. In addition to getting the teams to be on the same call, the most critical thing that we did was instituting an ecosystem North Star metric. Each company probably has their ecosystem North Star metric. If they don't, they should. But for us, that was really focusing in on profit margin. And then from there, what we learned was different channels we can, let's say, for example, Amazon is likely one of our best performing channels from a profit margin perspective. And so what we can do is we can use the things that we learn on Amazon and use that as a way to hedge more top of funnel spend on Google and on Facebook. And so looking at it as an ecosystem wide, we can comfortably take on top of funnel spend on another channel and kind of balance the two out. We've doubled year over year since we've been with Pilothouse, and doubled year over year in the sense of just as a company as a whole, both from a revenue perspective and from a profit margin perspective. Yeah, since we came on with Pilothouse to now, it's more like tripled from where we started. So I think it's been tremendous growth. And so it's been very fast, very quick. We were with a small agency before we came under Pilothouse. We were immediately impressed with the scope of the services that were available at Pilothouse. Our goal was to try to basically kind of bring everything in-house in some ways, which was in-house meaning under Pilothouse's umbrella. And the goal was we're going to start with one channel, see how things go, and then if everything goes well, we're going to expand from there. And again, I think we started with Meta and Google, and then added on Amazon, and then the last addition we did was email. And so we're slowly just adding more and more on. And I think we were very impressed with the scope of services that were offered. I think that was really stood out to us. The second thing was the willingness and the flexibility of the teams to work together. The biggest agencies, I think a lot of channels are just kind of siloed from one another. And when we've spoken to other founders, we ask them, is your Google team speaking with your Amazon team? And they're often like, well, not really. That's something that we've been very happy with, that at Pilothouse, in addition to having all the different channels covered, that the teams in each individual channel is able to communicate with the other, and bringing it under all a single meeting with the teams really helps with that. I think the scope of services and the flexibility of the teams to work together has been amazing. We are excited with the growth that we're projecting for 2025. As a brand, we are entering retail in a big way in 2025. And I think that it's going to be interesting to add that, think about how we can use our e-commerce presence, which is, again, primarily fueled and led by Pilothouse, how we can use some of that to garner and grow our retail footprint and retail sales. So that's going to be an interesting challenge. And we think that the Pilothouse team will do really well with that. They've been flexible to date. We're also thinking about some other ancillary channels that we may be able to tap into. And so we're projecting very solid growth. And the most important thing is that for us as a company is when you're in the business of building a category defining business, you just have to be around long enough to actually build the category. And so for us, fueling our growth, but doing so profitably is mission critical. We believe we're what you call a default alive company. We're there now and we want to make sure we maintain that. We want to continue to grow, but I think it's foolish to have the mantra of grow at all costs. And for us, the goal is let's continue fueling our growth. Let's open up additional channels, including retail, and do so profitably, because the Pilothouse team has been so cohesive and compliant with our North Star metric. We've been able to fuel that growth, and we think that'll continue into 2025.